Well, we have the perfect guest on for week 1 of the NFL season. It's Charean Williams. She's been covering the NFL now for 30 seasons, often referred to as Mother Football. And that's exactly where I want to start this. When was the first time that somebody called you that?
Well, it was my former coworker, Clarence Hill of the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, and it's kind of a funny story. We were in the Cowboys press room over at their old practice facility, and it's a really small facility, and everybody's TVs are on, everybody's talking about baseball and screaming about baseball, and finally I had had enough, and I said, this is not a baseball press room, this is a football press room. Stop the baseball talk, I'm trying to work. And Clarence said, who do you think you are, Mother Football? And everyone just burst into laughter. So it kind of stuck after that. Randy Galloway, who was a fairly famous radio broadcaster here, had a sports talk radio show, picked it up, and everybody credits Randy for giving it to me because he said it so much on the radio, but it was actually Clarence who gave it to me, and gets kind of peeved when people credit Randy for it. But it was Clarence Hill who tabbed me Mother Football, and it's kind of stuck. I kind of like it.
Oh, I love it. I mean, it's a perfect nickname for one of the first women who's really been able to cover this league. I mean, I think it has a double meaning to it, right? Like it's a really special nickname. It's an honor, honestly. Something that I read about you, Charean, is that you knew that you wanted to cover the NFL when you were in second grade. Now, when I was in second grade, I think I was still in my garbage truck phase where I really wanted to be driving a garbage truck. I don't even think that I knew that you could cover sports in second grade. So how was it that you identified this as a career for yourself?
Well, I was a huge Cowboys fan, and I would wear all my Cowboys stuff to school. You know, most girls wore the dresses. I wore the Cowboys jerseys and the Cowboys T-shirts and sweatshirts and all that sort of stuff most of the time. So everyone knew I was a big Cowboys fan. And so my teacher, Cindy Bridges, in second grade, asked me, or I asked her how far it was to Dallas. And she said, well, it's about 5 hours. It's 300 miles. I grew up near the Houston area in Beaumont. And she said, well, why do you want to know? And I said, I'm going to marry Roger Staubach, thinking, I thought teachers were a little smarter than this. Doesn't she know that's what I'm going to do? Went back to what I was doing, whatever that was. And so, you know, at that time, newspapers did human interest stories. So a writer named Joe Cody from our local paper, the Beaumont Enterprise, came out and wrote a story on the Cowboys' youngest fan. That's what the headline was. So I was 8 years old, and I mentioned in the article not only that I wanted to marry Roger Staubach, but that I wanted to cover the Cowboys for my job. And, you know, I had no idea that girls didn't do this. It's just what I wanted to do. And so I would practice. I would use, at that time, we had big old microset recorders. And so I would practice my interviews with my sister. She was the interview subject. And I would climb up on my A-frame swing set that was metal and pull off the rubber cap. And I used it to do my play-by-play because it reverberated through the metal. But really, that's when I started really preparing for this is what I want to do, and I'm going to go do it, whatever that means. So, I'm thankful to all the women who paved the way for me to get this opportunity, and hopefully I've done the same for some younger women coming up in the profession.
So for our New England fans that don't know, Roger Staubach was the quarterback for the Cowboys back in the 70s. So I like that I like how at the time you hadn't quite figured out you don't want to get too close to your subjects yet. That's
exactly.
Awesome. What did your friends think of your passion for football?
Most of them were Cowboys fans anyway, but I became the Cowboys expert. Yeah, I remember we were going to a band concert. It was a night concert. My parents were with me, and these two boys are arguing at the door over what number Leroy Jordan is. And they're arguing back and forth. And they go, hey, there's Charean. My mom tells this story. And I do remember it because my mom's told it so many times. But she said, hey, there's Charean. She'll know the answer to this. Charean, what number is Leroy Jordan? I said, 55. And I just kept walking, like, who doesn't know he's 55? And my mom, they stood back to see what the boy's reaction was going to be. I mean, I didn't care, but one of the boys paid the other boy $1. My mom says, they just took your word for it, that he was number 55. And I said, well, was I wrong? So I wasn't wrong. So I was kind of the Cowboys expert in school. I really did study it. I mean, I would pick these teams. I would pick like the all Texas team, and I would just really study everything, and everything in my bedroom was Cowboys and NFL stuff. So I really was, I think, even though sometimes I didn't know it, I was preparing to do this in my younger days. So I think that served me well leading up to what I've become now.
Well, I can tell by talking to you, one, you were an incredible Cowboys fan, but you were also you have a love for the game. You have a love for the X's and O's and the actual game of football. Why do you love the game so much?
Well, I think when you grow up in Texas, it's kind of a fabric of our state. We grew up going to A&M Texas game on Thanksgiving or the Cowboys game on Thanksgiving. That's what you did. So I've hardly ever, celebrated Thanksgiving on a Thursday, on Thanksgiving Day. That's not our Thanksgiving Day. It's usually Wednesday night or Friday day or Friday night, but some other time in the calendar is when our Thanksgiving is. So you just grow up with football, and the boys in my neighborhood, they played football, and they kind of taught me the game and the plays and all those sorts of things. And then you just study it and ask questions and figure things out that you don't know because you didn't play the game. And I have asked an awful lot of questions to coaches and others about specific things. What does a play call mean, and what's the route tree look like, and all those things that, if you played those positions, played the game, you know what those things are. So you figure all those things out, but it does take a lot of study. I mean, it's not like you just jump into this and go, I want to cover football. Like, you've got to know football to cover football. So it has been a lifelong passion of mine. And I don't just talk about the people. I do understand the game and understand what they're trying to do. And I can see plays on the field now. I know it well enough that I can sometimes tell you what's going to happen, what the play is. I did it in a college game the other day. I was sitting in the stands, and I think people were they didn't know who I was, and kind of amazed that I was telling them what was wrong with the offense and why it wasn't operating like it should be operating. But it does take a lot of time, a lot of studying to if this is what you want to do, to figure out the game and know the game inside and out. But it is a passion. It is a love. You are right. And I just don't think you can do anything in life, whatever that is, whatever your job is. I just don't think you can do it well if you don't have that passion and you don't have that love for it. Unfortunately, for me, that this is what I love and have a passion for. And I don't know that I've ever worked a day in my life.
Well, I love that you bring up the fact that you haven't played the game. And something for me is that I always like to use my natural curiosity, especially when I'm covering sports like football or sports like hockey that I haven't played myself, because I do think that's almost a sort of advantage even over people that have played the game and take a lot of the things that they know for granted, when a lot of people that are watching the games haven't been in their shoes. They actually haven't played the game themselves. So you can use it to your advantage, and there's so much to learn. That's something also that I love about sports, is it's so much that you can learn, so much that you can grow in. I love it. I love that I can hear your passion in your voice. It's amazing. Something that I'm really curious about too is what it was like for you. You were one of the first women that was covering the NFL. So what was it like for you as you started to see more women enter the field?
Well, it was really cool because I was the first for a really long time. And it was a big deal when I went in the Buccaneers locker room in 1994 on a daily basis, and was there every day. And the first Sage Steele also was working for a TV station, and she sometimes showed up. So occasionally there were two of us, but on a daily basis, I was it. And in that locker room every day. And so, it didn't faze me. Like, it's just something that you accept. This is what you want to do. And again, it goes back to, I think, that love and passion for it, that you just become one of the boys, so to speak, and you fit in. And a lot of them are like my brothers now that I work with the Bucs, and now that when I worked with the Cowboys, and some of the NFL writers that I've worked with for a long time, I think consider them almost like family, because that's what it is, because you see the same faces over and over and over again. But it is really cool now to see more women in the profession. And when you go in a locker room, when you show up in the press box, you're not the only one. So I think that's a really cool thing that, hopefully I've paved the way for some of them to be able to do this, or at least showed that it could be done if this is what they wanted to do. And I see a lot of the same love and same passion from the women in the locker rooms who are younger than me. So that's exciting, I think, from where we've come and how things have changed. And now players and coaches expect to see women covering the NFL, which, like I said at the time, was a really big deal, and they didn't see women come into the locker room, so it was different. So it's been a big change over my 30 years covering the NFL, and all for the better. And it's I like where we are right now, and we're not talking about who was first. We're talking about who's next, and there are a lot of next coming along.
So you started covering the NFL back in 1994, and you said earlier in this discussion that there were some women that you felt paved the way for you. Who were some of those people?
Well, I think you start with Melissa Ludke, who had to sue. She worked at SI at the time and was denied entry into the press box or clubhouses at the World Series. And Sports Illustrated sued, and they said, yes, you can't deny women entry into clubhouses. If the men go in, the women have to go in as well. So you look at, people like that, and Lisa Olson and Leslie Visser, and, those are kind of the people who and I know I'm probably missing some who helped in this, but there are many, many more who came up, who really paved the way for me, that I look up to and see them as an inspiration, and got phone calls. And Christine Brennan, who works for USA Today, I'll never forget. I had an incident after a Texas A&M Arkansas game with the Arkansas not letting me into the locker room. The men went in, and I stood outside, and they promised to bring me out, the quarterback and the coach, after the men were done with their interviews, and they never did. They forgot about me. And I heard from Christine Brennan, and she helped, make a statement that this isn't how it should be, and we can't tolerate this. And so very appreciative to all of them and what they've done for much harder times than I went through. And I had some of those instances, but not nearly as much as what they did, more in the 80s and 70s, and really getting us to where we are now. So very appreciative to all of them.